When I look at these beautiful children, what I see is an incredible opportunity for them to grow into having a good life. They feel capable, they can give back, they can contribute, they can participate, they can take care of themselves and their own. When they're dealt a script that blocks that opportunity out, a set of parents who can't deliver the care they need, the nurturing they need to grow up, a community that's indifferent at best and at worst, discriminatory and cruel, they will not have a good life.
I felt like the things that we wanted we couldn't have, you know, so that was a little frustrating, but I just felt like, yeah, we just can't get it because my mom can't afford it, so you can't get it. And the only other way people was getting stuff back then was by like taking it.
Growing up, my dad had no father.
You don't know who he is? You never met him?
I know my father. I know him very well. He's a coward.
Why you call him a coward?
Because I witnessed him put his hands on females in front of me, and that's not the flow. Like, that's not where it's at.
So like every day we would argue, fuss, just about anything. My stepdad, like he overdid it when he would spank me or whoop me. He would, I was like in elementary school, going to school like limping because I had like my leg would like turn purple from like the belt buckle, and like he would like smack me sometimes. And
you know, my mom she was diagnosed with schizophrenia and some other stuff, and it's like we were just like, wow, like we were just out there. Like, it's lack of clothes and lack of food, lack of how we take care of the place, you know, what we was sleeping on, like.
You know your mother is now? How do you feel about your mother?
I felt that my mother didn't care about me, and I also felt so that she showed more love to the drugs than she showed me. And I felt so that she wasn't a good mother for real.
How does that feel?
Made me feel like what type of parent I had back then. It made me feel sad sometimes. I think about it. Because why would you choose a drug over your son?
And so if they've been betrayed by the parent, if the parent has abandoned them, who protects them from the larger problem, the larger betrayal? Institutions that will not give them an education. The violence in the neighborhood, the drug dealing, the insensitivity, the guns. That's another level of betrayal. How much betrayal does a young human being take while they're absent from getting the care they need? What happens to the child?
I was standing on a basketball court one day, right? And people was like fighting over a basketball game. One of the guys on the other team, for real, had a gun and everything. He shot one of my mans, for real, you feel me? People get killed over anything, for real, because he had like a white t-shirt, so he was all bloody on the ground and all that. The guy had said, I ain't here to rob y'all, bro. I'm just here to prove a point. I'm thinking like, what point you trying to prove, for real?
High school, that was a terrible school. I go in there and I had the police standing right there, metal detectors, they patting me down, asking for IDs that I ain't have, and going in pockets and all this stuff just to get into school. And it was like even worse when you got in there, so like I didn't even want to be there.
I remember this to this day. I think I was like 8. I'm just walking with my mom, and I look, and I see a tinted, black tinted car, I see the window roll down and I see a gun come out the car or whatever. And I see the shooting. I see shooting start going on, and I see, you know, as he's shooting, like 3 of them get hit, and like 1 of them hurt and run in the building. And as that's going on, my mom like crying. My mom crying and all that, and she trying to like tell me get down, like telling me get down and stuff like that. And she crying.
I was in the streets. At 11 years old, I got shot 3 times for taking people off.
Cause he basically tried to kill you, right?
Like, yeah, I woke up to the gun in my face.
I think they become courageous survivors. They develop a moral code that we've taught them from our own indifference. It's called Get Them Before They Get You. Trust no one. Figure it out. You're all you have. How powerful is that? At 7, I've seen them already with the lights out.
I'm thinking that my dad was still alive because nobody had told me that he died at 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, we were just walking around the hospital talking about like memories that we had and plans and goals that we had in life. I just had this gap of anger towards I don't know who. I don't know if it's God, I don't know if it's my mom, I don't know who it is, but ever since my dad left, it's just been hell.
Or some people ain't had parents or a father to tell them what to do or the correct thing to do. Me growing up, I didn't always have a father. My mother was my father, so I was in the streets having. Most of my friends right now dying or locked up, getting locked up.
It's just that like I wanted to fit in for real with everybody. Like I was like basically like a follower and everything. And now that I get to look back on all the things that I did, now that I think that I shouldn't did none of that stuff. Like some of the stuff I did, I regret it.
When you gotta worry about people getting shot here and you don't want to get shot, that makes you go get a gun. And that's when this whole, I get a gun, if he try and rob me, and that's why black on black, you know, shooting because a person trying to rob you, so you want to defend yourself. So this, yeah, that's why it's a war against ourselves. There's a lot of intelligent people in the hood, whatever, as we say, but it's like they just don't have no opportunity or they don't have no way out.
The good news, children can recover from trauma. Young people can heal from trauma. And the good news is it takes a community to ensure that that happens. A community that cares enough to make certain it happens, because it happens all the time. And they move beyond survival to a quality of living, to a good life. It happens all the time, but not often enough.
Like, so many people wonder why like young black men are so angry. When you get treated like that, that builds anger. And when you out doing this in the street, doing that, people don't see that. So we just really showing how the anger that we really have and the emotion that we have when we put on the video.
I think that like all the stuff I had been through in the experience, I truly think that like God like really got a plan for me, a better plan for me. Because all these 19 years, I've been stressing and been through all this. Probably like in the next 19 years, it'll be the opposite way.
This my ID, like my first school ID ever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm proud of it. It's my first high school ID ever.
Well, like the program basically for you to how you like to start on your own. When you first get there, you gotta go to school, get your job, and just like provide for yourself for real. And they provide like little programs for you to like get back on your feet for real, and they teach you how to live independently.
It feels more like a home than a facility. It feels good. I mean, to feel like somebody cares about you.
You know, a lot of people in my situation just want an opportunity to succeed in life. You know, just give us those opportunities and then we can blossom into something much bigger than we already is.
We want to build a community that taps into their belief that there's something bigger than what's happened to me. I am something more than what's happened to me. I am intrinsically valuable.
They showed me the light at the end of the tunnel. It was always there, but I never wanted to see it. Like, they're giving me more hope.
Just build those bridges for the ones that do want to come across and want to sit there and learn and do something.
I won't be staying in this place for a while, for real, so what I'm gonna do now, for real, I'm gonna say goodbye. So, I'm done.
So try to get that opportunity. Don't miss your blessing. And you will one day be okay. And forgiven.
Welcome back to Good News Baltimore. Today, we will be sitting with Dr. Sheryl Chapman, Executive Director of the National Center of Children and Families. We will be discussing childhood post-traumatic stress disorder and how it's birthed in adolescents, particularly adolescents who have a very traumatic childhood, who grew up in really harsh conditions. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh no, thank you for this opportunity.
Wonderful.
To talk about a very important topic that many of us don't seem to get a good handle on when we think about our young people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's my understanding that children with post-traumatic stress disorder have to at least experience one traumatic event.
Well, there are two ways you can think about it. There can be the big, distressful, intrusive, life-threatening event. And that could be watching a parent be murdered, seeing a major car accident, something really big that just disrupts the child's sense of safety and well-being. But you can also think of post-traumatic stress disorder coming from chronic intrusions. And typically, and most of the research has been done around PTSD, comes out of children who have been maltreated. So they've been physically abused over time, they have been sexually molested, or they've been neglected. About 75% of the children who are reported to child protection agencies in this country have been neglected.
There are many people who believe that post-traumatic stress disorder is something that individuals suffer from that maybe have gone to war. They don't see it as something that children deal with. But there are a lot of children right here in Baltimore City that are at war, right? So
Absolutely.
What are some of the symptoms that we would notice or we could detect if there was a child that was experiencing
Well, let me
this?
talk a little bit about this war imagery that you have.
Yes.
When you think about childhood, they're supposed to get affection, safety and stability, consistent caregiving, and socialization, how they live in the world. That's our role as adults, to raise children so that they really can envision themselves taking care of themselves and their own children and their elderly dependents.
Right.
So what happens when they don't get that? And for some children, they don't get it in a big way. So the war could be your mother's mentally ill and no one's treating her, and half the time you don't have enough food in the house and you're hiding it because you're ashamed when you go to school. But that can be a real big deal if your mother's talking about voices, there's no food in the house, and you've got to go out and figure out how to steal food to not only just take care of yourself, but to take care of your siblings. That happens every day in this city. Mm-hmm. And folks do not realize that that is a real injury and insult to the child's ability to focus on what they should be focusing on,
Right.
which is education, who am I when they become a teenager, what do I believe in, who should I be with, what's my goal for what I'm going to become. So the war is all the things that distract, but it can also be witnessing violence in the street, ducking bullets that go by.
Right. Now, these children are victims. You know, they're victims of their environment.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, you know, aside from just seeing them as troubled kids, because they're probably acting out, How, is there any particular thing that we might be able to identify when we see these kids that we know that this is PTSD that's taking place?
Well, one of the things that's clear, and we work with many, many young people in our agency. We serve over 40,000 now, and we serve a number of young people who actually are from Baltimore, who've been removed from their homes because they are, quote, as you said, acting out. They're stealing, they're getting in fights, they're dealing drugs, those kinds of things. And so we're prone to see that as a behavior problem. I would prefer to think about this as concentrated manifestation of trauma, PTSD extreme. Because here's what happens when you have these life traumas and you're young and your brain is forming. What happens is you are vulnerable to cognitive distortions. They may be unable to sleep. They may be irritable. As one young man said to me, I just wake up every morning angry, just angry. My dad left me, and he left me and my mom with a lot of kids. We had nothing. And then someone moved in the house and molested my sister. I fought with him, he fought with me, and I'm out. How do you live with that when you're 14, 15 years old?
Right.
I want to be real clear, this can be addressed, but it can only be addressed when we're aware. If we stereotype young people, we're not going to see the PTSD. We're only going to see what we want to see. Irresponsible, no good, hustler, drug dealer, trifling, and the words can get even more offensive than that.
So, Dr. Chapman, how do we start getting around some of these social, economic, and racial stereotypes and start treating the post-traumatic stress disorder that these children are dealing with every day?
We've got to be able to foster claiming all young people, no matter what they're acting out. That is a large community responsibility. So it's not the rhetoric of it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to value the child and care enough to look at what is beneath the behavior. Younger children typically will show their post-traumatic stress by kind of being numb or dissociating and just not dealing with it. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is it doesn't go away. And so if you've been sexually molested at 4, this young person I talked to yesterday, and now you're 15 and you're pregnant, what do you think will begin to happen? She's going to recapitulate, remember the original injuries, because now her own sexuality is up for discussion. And what is she going to do with this baby, because she's only 15 in the 9th grade? When they hit puberty and adolescence, all the things that they've internalized in their early childhood will come to bear.
And Dr. Chapman, you were talking about that village, you know, the extended community. Our school system is a big, big part of that. What exactly, if anything, is taking place in the school systems to address children that are dealing with PTSD?
Teachers often are the most offensive with kids who have post-traumatic. They yell and raise their voice, they get stern and rigid, and that will trigger a youngster who's already been violated, or who can't cope, or who hasn't been sleeping at night. I do believe, though, the movement to look at trauma-informed practice is going to become the next wave through the schools. I think with the shootings that we've seen in some schools, there's more now experience with having mental health interventions come into the school. But now I believe teachers are going to have to be able to assess in their own classroom, without there being a big shooting, whether or not there's a child silently suffering and needs treatment and intervention.
Exactly, exactly. And one of the things that, you know, concerns me as we talk about it is, you know, coping with something so traumatic. And not just one thing. We're talking about children, you know, in the inner cities that grow up around vacant houses, major drug activity, crime, abuse, and they can get better?
Yes, they can. And well, there's a couple of realities. One is that there are children who are, by their temperament, profoundly resilient. And we call them invulnerables, but there are children that go through just incredible life journeys, and they are going to succeed. Their temperament attracts people, they will figure it out. So the biggest intervention for children and adolescents who have trauma history is having the opportunity for them to tell their story and share their experiences. We recently had some wonderful videographers work with 4 of our boys around their story, 4 Baltimore boys around their story, and that transformed their hopefulness, and that was a healing process for them.
And those sound like you were just mentioning 4 children that you've helped. And I know you and the National Center of Children and Family have helped over 4,000 people a year in families and make their lives more productive. What are some of the other programs that you are involved in throughout the DC region?
We're up to 40,000 with the Neediest Kids program.
Wonderful.
And with our DC Youth Link program. Our programs range from therapeutic, highly structured group homes, independent living transitions for young people aging out of the child welfare and juvenile justice systems but can't go home, homeless youth that are in the community, homeless families. We have entire families living on our campus, our living in Park Road in the district. We work with domestic violence victims who are undocumented immigrant women with their children. So the theme of our work is helping the community help those who are most vulnerable, those children, those families who are most vulnerable.
Right, and I love one of the words you used. It was, I believe, the invulnerables. It makes me think of Mr. and Mrs. Incredible. It's a big cartoon.
Yes.
And one of the greats of our lifetime is Dr. Maya Angelou. I would say she was one of the invulnerables. She actually was a victim of, I would say, a post-traumatic stress event in her life at points that she couldn't talk, and she is one of the most prolific storytellers. So there are a lot of people that can get better and that can grow.
These African American boys that I have don't really believe that they're an asset to the community, that they're important and that they're invaluable and that they are more than what has happened to them. And that's got to be reframed. And Maya, she in her invulnerability reframed it.
Yes.
And she made it a public conversation. She said, this is the truth. So I'm thinking about the 15-year-old that I was meeting with yesterday, and she listed all of the traumas that ever happened to her. And she listed the 10 foster homes she's been in since she was 12, and she's only 15. And the staff was sitting and mesmerized. And I want to reframe it for them. Her temperament, she's invulnerable. She understands the powerfulness of owning what has happened to you so you can separate from it.
Yes.
So you can separate from it, that you are not what happened to you. That's what happened to you. That's not who you are.
Right. So speaking it, writing it,
Yes.
separating yourself
Yes.
from it, seeing it, identifying
Yes.
it, and walking away from it and moving somewhere else.
So for our black males, music, dance, the drum, the videos, not walking into a classroom with some swag and having a teacher say, don't start today. You need to sit out and be quiet because I'm not putting up with you today. Do you understand me, young man?
Yeah.
Triggers that trauma, triggers that sense of it's all about power and control. So yes, the police officer triggers that. Yes, the teacher triggers it. And it can be worked through though, because every young man has to figure out how to respond to reasonable authority because it's part of living in the world with other people. And so we have to make sure that these children and these adolescents are not in a position where they think that they have the right to traumatize others because they were.
Right. And you know what? I think at the end of the day, it takes us reaching out to one person and changing one life at a time
Absolutely.
and making that person valuable and vulnerable and incredible. And I see that you're doing that every single day. So
Take the risk.
take the risk. Thank you, Dr. Chapman. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back with more Good News Baltimore.